So let's say you wanted to make an enolate. Okay, so an enolate compound kind of looks like this, where we've got our ene and our anion. So we're going to make an enolate compound. How do we do that? You think you add some base. Now I've called out this hydrogen here as the most acidic of the alpha hydrogens that we have on this molecule. It's the same as the one on the other side because it's symmetric. So it ends up coming off. Now remember, the pKa of this thing is about 17. Okay? We abstract that hydrogen, we make this, it resonates between these two things. We've seen that before, but the issue is that we make the conjugate acid of this, which is H2O, and the pKa of that is 15.7. So that means that we make a stronger acid than we would started with, and what that'll tell us is that equilibrium is going to favor that as a product, which means that this reaction is not going anywhere. So just dumping in hydroxide because it's a good base isn't going to help us out, because we make something that's more acidic, and that's not going to stand. So what we tend to use is something called LDA, which is lithium diisopropyl amide, and it's abbreviated LDA. So the pKa for this again is about 17. It abstracts the hydrogen just like we thought, and then the diisopropyl amine, which is this, that's what ends up getting made. This has a pKa of about 35. So this is the much stronger acid, which means that equilibrium favors this direction. So we're going to end up going in that direction. So LDA is going to be our new best friend for making an enolate. So why would we make an enolate? Well, we want to alkylate something. We want to go through alkylation. So if I have like a cyclopentanone here, and I add LDA in the presence of THF, I've got this, we abstract the hydrogen, and electrons can shift from here over to here, and we end up making these two structures. Now this is the one that is more reactive than this one, and so what ends up happening is that this acts like a nucleophile. So electrons from here grab onto this, and these electrons come back down, kicking this bromine off, and what we come out with is something that has been alkylated, which is a fancy word for us saying that we've made a new carbon-carbon bond. And things that make new carbon-carbon bonds are quite exciting to us, because we can take small structures and turn them into bigger and more interesting, more complicated structures. So we definitely want to do some of that. All right. Now, in making an enolate, okay, they aren't always symmetric. So this is an asymmetric compound. Now that is not an H coming out there. This is, a CH3. So I'm just trying to show that there's a methyl there. So we react with our LDA and THF, and there are two places where we can abstract the hydrogen from. This one over here, and this one right here. So we have like a tertiary carbon or a secondary carbon. We've got more than one option. So if we end up extracting the secondary carbon, what happens here is we form our enolate, which can resonate. So these electrons go here, kick electrons up to there, and we end up forming this compound. And there should be a new double bond here. Okay? And then if we add CH3 to this compound, remember those electrons are going to grab onto that CH3, the iodine is going to get kicked off, and we add that new CH3 right here. So we get a 2,6 compound right here. So this is a 2,6. If we ended up abstracting the tertiary, so here we're going down our tertiary column, if we end up abstracting the extra hydrogen that's on here, we have our electrons that are isolated on this carbon, and they go back to here, they kick their electrons up to this oxygen. So we have a double bond that forms here. Now this is a more highly substituted double bond, so as far as double bonds go, this is more stable. And this double bond can react with this CH3, it's going to kick that off, and we get our CH3 right there, and this is our 2,2 compound. So since both are possible, how do we know which one gets made, or if both get made, or in what ratio they get made? Well, because one of them can be formed first, such as this one, because these hydrogens are very accessible, this is what's known as our kinetic product. This can be formed second, and this is our thermodynamic product. it's the one that is more stable. Now, we've seen kinetic and thermodynamic products before, and sometimes they can be the same. But the one that is the more stable is the one that is our thermodynamic product. So the more stable, and this is the one that we end up making in larger amounts. Okay, depending on how we control this reaction. Now, the depth to which we do this isn't really what we're going for here. Just realizing that you can have, if you have an asymmetric compound, we can make more than one product. So if we have asymmetry, we get multiple products. And that's what's really important for this portion of it here. So let's apply that here. So here's a common problem that you might get. So this is problem 16A out of Bruce. And the question is, starting with cyclohexanone, how can we make this? Well, if we're going to make a longer carbon chain, we're going to end up using LDA in THF, and that's going to end up producing something like this, okay, which is in resonance with another structure, I know. And we're going to add 1, 2, 3 carbons to that, so CH3, CH2, CH2, and then we're going to stick some sort of halogen there in the end, and these electrons will grab onto that, and what we'll make is exactly what we were trying to make. So that's the product. So that's how we would actually go through this, and it's a two-step process. Same thing with here, the fact that this is a benzene group doesn't make any difference. So we start with our cyclohexanone, we react it with LDA, and THF is a solvent. All right, and then we combine that with, let's see, there's 1 carbon here, it goes off to there. So we'll stick a bromine on there, and that will end up giving us this as our species. So it works out quite nicely. So there are some other problems like that. You're going to want to take a look at it. That takes us up through portion 17.7. And we're going to look at that. The next bit we're going to go over gets into aldol condensations and doing things at beta carbons. And so we'll pick up again at 17.9, 17.10. Good luck.